Okay, thank you, Council, for this opportunity to provide the state of the city. It's a bit of a abbreviated version from what we're going to do at the chamber on September 1st, just so I don't keep you here too long. I'd like to thank Miles Reed from the cable office. You can tell he's artistically enhanced this presentation a little bit. So what he took is the photos and actually made them look more like paintings. So let's start with the Watoto youth that came to the Medina Methodist Church on June 4th of this year. The group had been in the U.S. for about 4 months, traveling to various different cities nearly daily to perform. And while at the home of one of the Medina families, the chaperone shared with the children to take a good look at Medina, the care, the upkeep, and the compassion that you see here. And when you grew up to be leaders in Uganda, this is what they should try to emulate. And I just wanted to share that with you. The children stayed at, the children and the chaperone stayed at one of the members that I go to church with at the United Methodist Church, and he was so pleased to live in Medina and have them recognize Medina over the other cities that they've been in. He wanted to personally share that, and I thought you'd want to hear it as well. So the focus of our administration and our collaboration, the administration's collaboration with the City Council, is to deliver exceptional service to our businesses and citizens. So sometimes these things are difficult to measure, or how do you know if you're achieving those things? And I think most times it's by the example of what we do. I don't know of any other city that assists with trash receptacles for those that are too aged to take them out to the street and back to the house, or those that are disabled and can't do that. I know that Councilman Lamb last August was planning a South Court tour, and unbeknownst to us, our concrete contractor had picked that Friday before to tear out and replace the concrete down in the areas of the home tour. Councilman Lamb contacted us. We were able to get with the contractor. Nino took care of the contractor using a fast set concrete. We were able to get the concrete poured, set, the frames removed, and dirt backfilled on the sides of it, all before the home tour the following day. Drainage issues, we hear regularly by contractors that our city does more. These are contractors, mind you, that work in a variety of cities. Our approach to drainage issues is much higher than what other cities are doing. Our police officers were trained by SUMA and the Cleveland Clinic collaboratively on the Narcan treatment for heroin overdoses. Other counties have experienced deaths due to cutting agent fentanyl being used. We have saves versus death with most of our administrations. We have lost a few, and feel that the Narcan policy is a policy that others could replicate. In November of last year, November 18th to be precise, we had an elderly resident that's furnace was not working. It was single digits outside. You guys remember the winter. And her furnace had shut down. All she had was a small electric space heater. So Nino and our building official, Dan Gladish, went to the home. Dan was able to check what was malfunctioning and get the problem corrected, so the furnace began working. Dawn then, for follow-up, Dawn from my office then called back several times to check on the resident to make sure all was still well. She was in the process of waiting for the CDBG funds to come through and get the furnace repaired and replaced. It just happened to break down before that. On January 3rd of this year, Ron McMillan contacted us to praise sanitation employee Bob Kugler, who brought an unopened Christmas card back to the house that when they were dumping the trash into the back of the sanitation truck, he noticed that the card was still unopened. They returned that to him, and there was a $50 gift. There's a $50 gift inside of it from Christmas. And he was very impressed with the integrity and honesty of our staff which we are as well. Bob Mihalko stopped by my office on February 5th to pick up a senior snowplow application for his father, who was ill and having trouble going back and forth to the hospital and to doctor's appointments. We gave Bob the application, but by the time Bob went back home to check on his father's house, our service department had already cleared the driveway pending the filing of the application. And then last but not least is a water leak to show you the team effort of the city staff. On February 17th at about 5 p.m., it was noticed that our Lake Road water tank was depleting rather rapidly. In fact, getting to the point that fighting fires would have been a challenge for us. Sandy Davis gathered email addresses, and engineering sent an email to all the industrial users on Lake, because we had sent staff out to look in areas where it would be evident, roadways, front yards, and we're not having much luck in using it. So our hope was to have them walk around their buildings to see what they could find. This covers most of the industrial area. Myself, the police department, Nino, our building official, all began driving around checking for it, and our building official, Dan, found a massive leak on Industrial Parkway. The building had been vacated, the heat had been shut off, and the actual fire suppression had blown because of the coldness in the building, and had filled up the building with water. It was coming down the dock doors. The parking lot was flooded and frozen. The creek next door was flooded and frozen. They were able to get into the building to shut the main valve off there, and then we had about 3 feet of snow at the time. They had to dig out the curb box to shut it off at the curb, and then make sure that we didn't turn it back on until things were resolved. But immediately upon shutting the valve off inside the building, Patrick could see the water level in that Lake Road tank increasing right away. Those are just a few of the many examples of the great staff and the excellent working relationship we have with council and the chamber, Main Street Medina, and the Medina County Economic Development Committee. So some of the residential and business initiatives, at least of late, we continue to promote the accessibility of staff and the mayor. We want to be responsive. We want to be available when people need help, and we want to treat needs with a sense of urgency, and we do that day in and day out. Some of the improvements, same-day permits for electrical upgrades, heating and cooling replacements, window and door replacements, so that when people come in, they don't have to fill out an application, come back 2 or 3 days later and try to get their permit. They come in, they fill out the paperwork, they leave with the permit. The next day permits are those for fences or sheds where we need to go out and check the property line, or something where the fire department may have to help us review the plans if it's something more significant. Our parks and rec center continue to be a great draw by adding our trails and working with the county to attach our trails. Mr. Coyne's Christmas lighting is a great draw to the community during the holiday season. I think unusual to most cities, all of our public parking is free. None of our parking lots, everything just has time limits. Most other areas, it's either meters or you have to buy a ticket for a certain length of time. And I think this is really a good opportunity for us to promote our businesses by offering this and making our lots available. I think it just helps promote the downtown business. January of 2014, we combined the cemetery, forestry, and parks departments. And January 1st of this year, our city took over residential and commercial plumbing inspections. So we literally now in our building department have a one-stop shop. People can get all their permits, all their needs, all their inspections done in the city at one place. Road improvements and infrastructure. When I took office, as council knows, the industrial roads were deplorable, and We issued some bonds, and we've been methodically working our way through that, because you can't tear up too many of them at one time, because you need the others to route around it. So we've done nearly all of them. Lake Road, the second phase will be opened up here in a few weeks, and the only one then that we're missing, the last one that we're missing, is the last part of West Smith near the fairgrounds, which we're going to start the underground this year and complete that next year. But an interesting number that I think each of you will appreciate is, in addition to the city's tax dollars, which is a percentage of the income tax we take, engineering for the years 2012 to present has pulled down nearly $8 million in grant funds to help us with our infrastructure. And that's a great deal of work, a great deal of effort, and we're seeing the results on our city streets. The US 42 5-lane widening is still pending the bond sales, second bond sale of the Turnpike. And so now, instead of what we had hoped was 15-16, it may be more like 16-17 or 17-18. They did do the land acquisition, moving of the utilities, so we know that the project's going to happen. It's just a matter of getting the amount of revenue for the funding for the actual project. And then, in addition to the major street programs that the council is aware of, this year we're spending $600,000 on concrete street repairs, which is where we take out the squares and replace them totally, and another $75,000 in crack sealing. Some of the business initiatives is, again, responsiveness. As businesses call, if businesses have needs, that we help sort through those things. We've had times where myself and the department heads, necessary department heads, have gone out to a new business that's talking about an expansion, to prevent them from packing up all their people. Some of those people that they need to be there on site supervising, we'll go out and meet with them. Again, that's, I think, unusual in municipal government. Ribbon cutting and grand openings, the papers have been very gracious to us in covering those. We've been setting aside a month or a day a month to plan these collaboratively with Main Street Medina and the Chamber. And it does two things. One is it shows that new business that we all care, that we're all doing everything we can to make sure that they're successful. The other thing it does for me is it's a chance, now their business is open, there's no leverage. How were our city processes? What did you find with the inspections, with the permitting, and all of those things? And I can tell you that, bar none, the city is being very well represented in each of those cases. Revocable use permits to help businesses out. We provided one to Sully's for the patio. We provided one to Time 2. We provided 2 to Dominic's, 1 to High Voltage Indoor Karting at 563 Bronson Street, and we have another one that we're discussing and pending with PJ Marley's for them to add a outside patio. The Medina Coalition Brownfield Grant, you may recall this was Medina Township, Montville Township, Lafayette Township, York Township, and Chippewa Lake, along with the city. We got a $1 million grant for Phase 1 and Phase 2 on commercial and industrial properties, and we're just closing that grant out now, but I'm pleased to share with you that that $1 million resulted in $10.7 million in new investments and over 121 new jobs. So we were able to multiply those dollars pretty incredibly. We've had expansions at Drug Mart, McJack, and Sandrich, and made sure that we kept our permit processes on their time schedule so that we could keep them on track. This year, we're adding 3 permanent water connections with Medina County for redundancy because of the problems we had the last time with Avon Lake freezing. Kimberly Rice is working on a Made in Medina County initiative with the other 2 chambers and the other 2 cities They started the planning in January, and she announced tonight at council that in November we're going to have that presentation. ODOT is funding an origin and destination study to help us alleviate some of the public square congestion. We're looking at alternative routes, be it whether we widen or direct trucks to other roadways. The website, I think you'll find this interesting. We were able to capture a 12-month period of use of our website. We've had website visits from all 50 states and for 48 countries in addition to the United States, for a grand total of 244,000 hits on our website. And then one other thing I'd like to mention is it's not just the city helping businesses, the city being the council and the administration, but an interesting fact, when Courthouse Pizza opened in July, was businesses helping businesses. So they were having trouble, the owners, Jeff and Melissa Miller, were having trouble keeping up with making enough dough. So Shauna from the Cupcake a Day across the street, her fiance, Eric Schultz from Antiquation, and Paul Davis from Dan Dogs left their own stores to go over there and help them create the dough, prepare the products so that he could keep up with the demand for the pizza. And Jeff shared with me another day, Laura Parnell from Cool Beans, he needed some change, currency change for folks to make change, but couldn't leave the store at that time. And Laura volunteered to go out and get that for him. And again, that just shows businesses helping businesses be successful. Residential initiatives, our senior disabled and military snowplow program is continuing to increase. We had 39 participants in 2011, and this past year we had 67. Of those, 35 seniors and 32 were disabled, so close to a 50-50 match. On April 2012, we had the Big Day of Serving, which provides services on a Saturday morning to our local seniors and handicapped residents to provide some services that they can't do for their own. And since then, since April, on the first Saturday in May of each year thereafter, 13, 14, and 15, the local churches have taken this on themselves. We clear out the city garage to have a place for them to pray and have a little music and send everybody off. And we kind of use our senior snowplow group as the core for those, but then we also advertise it with the churches. And last but not least, knowledge of results is very important. People need to know what we're doing with their complaints. Either we can't do what they're asking, we can do what they're asking, but it's going to take a little while. So that knowledge is beneficial for people thinking that their concern or their question fell on deaf ears. Employee initiatives, we've had leadership training for all our department heads and supervisors. Sexual harassment training was done in 2012. We're currently looking for cultural diversity training for the staff and hope to have that implemented, if not before the end of the year, early next year. The Healthy Medina Initiative started a community partnership with the city, the schools, and the hospital in the fall of 2014. I'd like to thank Dr. Talisiak for that. CPR and AED training for all of our city employees. And I'm going to steal a comment from the chief. We in the city of Medina, and we've done this for some time, but we see our police as caregivers versus law enforcement officers first. And what we're seeing across the country in some of these protests and that is that law enforcement officers are only law enforcement officers, and how they deal with people, if it's not a law enforcement situation, they don't get out in the community, they don't know the people, and the people don't know them. Well, here we train our police officers to back up LST. They go on every LST call as first responders. We have AEDs in every single patrol car that was provided by the hospital, Medina Hospital, Cleveland Clinic. And then we trained our officers for trauma care for themselves, because God forbid one of them ends up shot or stabbed. We wanted them to have ready at hand the equipment to care for themselves and to survive until we could get them to treatment. Then when the chief and I discussed that, we thought, why not make kits for each car, so that if again, God forbid, we have an incident like a shooting at a school or at a theater, our officers don't have to step over those injured, waiting to clear the school for the medics to come in. We can give primary care to stop the bleeding, patch the puncture hole, to keep the people alive long enough to be treated by the medics, and that program is in place. So some people, may question, well, geez, when is anything like that ever going to happen in the city of Medina? Well, it happened June 21st, 2014, in front of First Merit. We had a 9-year-old boy who came here to council, and you all remember him coming to visit, who was struck by a car. And when the police officer got on the scene, there was a paramedic there already with his shirt laid on top of the boy's leg so that he couldn't see the severity of it. But that citizen whispers to the officer that the only thing holding his leg on is his skin at this point. And the officer had with him in his personal kit a tourniquet to control that bleeding until the medics could get there and fly that young man up to Metro. And I'll share with you today that young man has his leg and is walking and functioning like a 9-year-old as a result of the equipment that the officers had and the treatment they provided him so quickly on June 21st of last year. That photo, before I flip the slide, that photo on the right is our sanitation crew last winter when it was 5 below zero out. And I'll share with the council that we offer those fellows when it gets digits below zero without the wind chill. That's just the temperature. We've offered them to work a Saturday or a Sunday and take those colder days off, but they choose to tough it out and stay on track and do what they do day in and day out. And they do a great job for us. Some of the community initiatives, we continue to get compliments on the flower urns. We have a total of 74. I'm told we can't put more than that, although I'd like to, because we have trouble watering them and trimming them and keeping up with them. And we only have one cart that can hold so many people and water so many flowers. So the community policing model that we converted to the community government model, where we're training all staff to look at the city holistically, is working very well. We have a proactive property maintenance program, a committee of law enforcement, the law department, law enforcement, planning, building, and fire departments meet bi-weekly to go over progress, new problems, new concerns. Main Street Medina, as they did this past Saturday, is having additional and larger events, drawing more and more people to our city, which resulted in us purchasing the Key Bank drive-through and creating a visitor and public restroom center up there, which we opened November of 2014, right before the Candlelight Walk. And I can tell you, being up there yesterday for the International Festival, there was no lack of need for people in and out of there. It was a constant flow in and a constant flow out. And that tells me that our investment was well placed in doing what we did there. We also named that the property outside there, the Bicentennial Park, that permits us to pull down grant dollars to improve and add some park amenities. And we were also fortunate to receive a $28,000 grant from the Van Epp family for the fountain, which many people, again, probably as much as the restroom, want to go over and see it, want to sit by it, want to get their pictures taken with it. Wedding parties, prom, It's a very attractive background that's being very well used. The Archive Commission opened the History Museum on Public Square in a firehouse November of 2013, and they estimate since that time because they keep track as people come in, 7,400 attendees. They're open for band concerts, farmers markets, and all major events or festivals on the square. And when you think of a museum, you may not think, what's an average number? Well, that's really 370 persons per month if you figure the months that they were open. And what Roger Smalley shared with me is, in addition to the museum itself, sometimes it's new residents moving into the community, wanting to know about Medina, wanting to pick up one of the guides of the activities, and just gather information. And probably no better person to share that with them than Roger, with his history and knowledge of the city and downtown. We've received the RFQs for the court facility, and we're in the process of kind of going back and forth with different options. And then the last thing under community initiatives, I just want to mention the Spokes Cafe down at 406 South Broadway, because it's such a success story. The city bought that property to extend the trailhead and not have it so close to the railroad track, and we weren't quite sure what to do with the house. And this group, Peaceworks, has been able to convert the house with a lot of donations, a lot of labor, and now we have a facility where people can stop and get coffee, get pastries. Coffee and pastries are provided by Cool Beans. What they didn't want to do is compete with some of the local businesses that were already in place. So rather than compete, they partnered with them. So Cool Beans provides the coffee and the pastries. The bike rental is provided by Edge Outdoors, and some other snacks are provided by Just Mike's Jerky. They also have ice cream and soft drinks. And this provides employment opportunities for persons with developmental disabilities, and it's just another example of the vast collaboration we have within our community. The airport initiatives: in May of 2012, we placed the Medivac helicopter at the airport. In 2013, we added the Jet A fuel for that helicopter as well as others that use that type of fuel. In 2014, Flight Services built 10 new hangars, and all of those have now been rented, many of which were new pilots. And if you look at that photo on the far right, I know it's not real clear, but again, talking about the aviation history in the city of Medina, that was Medina resident Joe Zarni on the right. And to his left is General George Patton, who he flew in an airplane, and you can't read the writing on the nose of his plane very well, but what it says is Pride of Medina, Ohio. And he used that airplane to fly General Patton throughout the European War Theater. Financial position: the general fund balance is at 63%. And that's a little bit lower than what it has been. The income tax as well, we're about, in 2014, we were at 13.7. That's about as high as we've been, and right now we're on a pace to stay at about that, so we're not seeing much growth. We're seeing it stay pretty flat. That, along with the state funding that was cut for us, and then not knowing quite the full impact yet of the income tax changes of the state. It's just something that through our budget process we're going to have to continue to monitor and either pare back a little bit or do the best we can to do it in a more efficient manner. Some of the ways we're saving money is partnershiping with Medina City Schools. We provide them school resource officers at the high school and the two middle schools. 2 total officers, in exchange for them providing IT services for us. We've donated some old city computers that were in better shape than theirs when they needed them. We buy salt together and run our civil service officers together rather than have a duplication in services. And Jim Shields has been very helpful to us, not having a human resource department. There are times where we have employee issues that it's good to have another set of eyes and somebody that does human resource work day in and day out. And Jim's been very gracious to help us with those things, and we're very appreciative of that. In 2014, 2 recent grant awards from the Ohio Department of Development and Community Development block grants. There were 75 applicants for projects totaling in excess of $20.3 million. 34 of the top-ranking proposals were awarded for $9.5 million, and the city of Medina received 6.3% of those grants, which included $300,000 for the critical infrastructure of Foundry Street, which is about half the cost of that project, that will match with our local dollars, and then $300,000 for the downtown revitalization, which we're continuing to work our way through. The city of Medina, the city of Brunswick, and the city of Wadsworth joined collaboratively to apply for the CDBG funding together. If we had not done that, each city would have received about $350,000 each. Because we collaborated and had one person, our staff, doing the administration of the grant, we each got an extra $50,000. So rather than $1,050,000, we ended up with $1.2 million, which is better for the entire county. In addition to the engineering grant dollars I shared with you a little bit earlier, over $2 million in CHIP, home repairs, CDBG, which funds transit, sidewalks, ADA curb ramps, street improvements, and security cameras. And the Finance Department has received awards, Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association from 2008 to 2013. And it's not that they didn't get them last year or this year, it's that the awards are 2 years behind. That's too small for you to read. Award-winning Medina. In September 2012, Medina was named one of the 100 best communities for young people. November of 2012, Midwest Living magazine named Medina as one of the 25 best places to celebrate Christmas. April of 14, Northeast Ohio Parent magazine featured Medina as a family-friendly city. February 24th, Governor Kasich gave his State of the State in Medina. February 25th through 26th, Heritage Ohio held their statewide revitalization training in Medina. And in March of this year, the Ohio Taekwondo Championship qualifications were hosted at our rec center. And that's the first time that's been held somewhere other than Columbus. That's a photo of the governor at the Performing Arts Center. And one more award before then we see if there's questions. As you all know, Medina was selected as a quarterfinalist in Frontiers, America's Best Communities competition. We were one of 50 in the Market region. Kimberly, myself, Jonathan, Jacqueline from the Chamber, Bethany from County Economic Development went up and met with Cranes Cleveland to try to get this in their magazine and their promotions because we think it's pretty special. We're the only city in Northeast Ohio that got this designation. And this is it's not the city, it's the city economic, or the city community improvement, I don't have it, Medina City Development Corporation, in cooperation with the City of Medina, Frontier Communications, 620 Corporation, Root Candles, Community Design Committee, Discount Drug Mart, Gershbacher Real Estate, the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce, Main Street Medina, and County Economic Development Corporation. So all of those partners are, we feel, what helped us to move on in the standings. So right now we got $65,000 as a quarterfinalist that we can use to improve our plan. The 15 it'll be reduced from 50 to 15, January 13th of 16, 8 finalists on April 15th of 16, and then the 3 winners, grand prize winners, which is first place $3 million, second place $2 million, and third place $1 million, will be selected April 26th of 2017. So almost a year later, after the 8 finalists are selected. In July of this year, we were ranked number 10 of the best Cleveland suburbs. In July of 2015 as well, ranked one of the safest cities in Ohio by SafeWise report. And in closing, I feel we're truly blessed to live in such a great community, and I'm thankful and honored to have this opportunity to serve as mayor. If there's any questions you all have, I'd be happy to answer those. If not, I've kept you too long, right? Okay, thanks. Have a great night.